Good afternoon in Seoul and good morning in Helsinki. Welcome to all to our webinar, Women in Tech Towards the Success Story of Gender Equality. We have, of course, this week had the wonderful news from Korea of the gender equality. Chung, who won the Oscar for Korea once again. I hope I pronounced her name in a correct way in Korean. By the way, we Finns, we are not snobbish. We are so glad to arrange this event in cooperation with our good partner here in Seoul, the Korean Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. Therefore, we don't have live audience either, and two of our Finnish speakers are joining us online. Our goal today is to promote participation and leadership of women and girls in technology, science, and engineering. It is essential to bridge the gender gaps in digitalization and technological development. I sincerely believe that these topics are in the heart of the gender equality and more broadly necessary elements of successful modern societies and companies. Finland has been consistently promoting the gender equality and the rights of women and girls. It goes without saying that my government, led by the brilliant Prime Minister Sanna Marin and other prominent women, is a symbol of successful gender policies in longer term. But we are also aware that much more needs to be done, also in Finland. In order to have more women and girls in the leadership positions, and fully participate in the technological development, science and engineering. I sincerely hope that our discussion here today will provide new ideas, how to take concrete further steps and how to tackle the channels we face. Though we try to have practical approach in today's discussion, I want to highlight also Finnish global ambitions. A good example is the Finnish co-led in the Action Coalition on Technology and Innovations for Gender Equality within UN Women Generation Equality process. The basic idea in the Action Coalition is to bring together different stakeholders to promote gender equality in the technology context. This is exactly something that we try to do also here in this discussion. Also, I would like to remind here and use this opportunity to tell about Finland's candidature to the United Nations Human Rights Council for the years 22-24. This is actually our key foreign policy goal for the whole government. The Human Rights Council in Geneva is the most prominent UN fora where I can think of where we can promote the rights of women and girls. Finland promotes girls and women's participation in technology also through the projects here in Korea, and I'm proudly announce something from the embassy side. Our embassy here in Seoul has started, for example, a collaboration with Hanyang University Software Center. Our first project is a 4-week-long coding class for girls starting actually this Saturday. Our goal is to encourage girls to take part in technology from young age and to have courage to get involved with the coding. All in all, our embassy here in Korea wishes to keep carrying the valuable torch of equality in different occasions in close cooperation with our Korean friends. But now, let's get started with our discussion on women and in technology and how we could approach the mentioned new success story of gender equality. We are extremely privileged to commence our event with the opening words by Her Excellency Chung, I Minister of Gender Equality and Family here in the Republic of Korea. However, let's say briefly hello to our panelists. Mrs. Emma Winiecki, Communications Manager, UN Women in Finland. Dr. Moon Jeong Choi, Professor from KAIST. Mrs. Johanna Pystynen, CEO, Last Company. And Mrs. Hyun Seung Lee, co-founder of Telepasse, co-managing director of Girls in Tech. To our audience now, please send us questions in the YouTube live chat during the presentations. They will be answered during the question and answer session at the end of the webinar. But now, let's hear from Minister Jung Young-ai to open this webinar with her very distinguished message.
Good morning and good afternoon, distinguished guests and ladies and gentlemen. I'm Chung Young-ae, Minister of Gender Equality and Family. It's my pleasure to co-host this webinar with the Finnish Embassy in Korea on the topic of women in tech towards a success story of gender equality. First, I extend my deepest gratitude to Ambassador Pekka Metso and his staff for organizing this meaningful event. My gratitude also goes to the distinguished speakers who will share the experience of Korea and Finland and their implications, as well as the audience who are participating in this webinar via YouTube. In June 2019, the Korean Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, MOGEF, and the Finnish Ministry of Social Affairs and Health signed the MOU on cooperation in the area of gender equality to share policy achievements, programs, and best practices on gender equality. Under this MOU, the two countries have been working together to achieve gender equality, and this seminar has been also organized as part of these efforts. As social distancing has become a daily practice in this COVID-19 area, technologies and innovations, in particular digital technology, are instrumental in maintaining our daily lives, such as schoolwork and work life. At the same time, the pandemic crisis is also revealing the negative impact of technology. Recently, in Korea, there was a controversy over the AI chatbot and its gender-biased discriminatory messages. In addition, digital technology facilitated sexual abuse and violence against women continue to take place. To ensure that technology and innovation contribute not to discrimination but equality, it's important to incorporate gender perspectives into technology and innovation and increase diversity in the technology industry, including women's participation in the STEM sector. In this light, the Korean government devised measures to foster, utilize, and support women scientists and engineers while working to assist them in demonstrating their potential and capabilities. The Ministry of Science and ICT has established the first basic plan for fostering and supporting women scientists and engineers to present the mid to long-term policy goals and directions for increasing women's empowerment in science and technology. The ministry also recommends that women make up a certain percentage of newly hired and promoted employees in public research institutes in science and technology. In addition, MOGEF conducted a specific gender impact assessment on this policy designed to foster researchers and specialists in AI technology in 2020. To respond to technology-based gender discrimination and violence, MOGEF is also providing support to victims and illicit images through the Digital Sex Crime Victim Support Center. The distribution and spread of technology do not respect national borders. Therefore, international cooperation is essential to addressing the negative effect of technology while increasing its positive impact. In closing, I hope we can take an important step toward enhanced gender equality in the area of technology and innovation in this webinar through the Korea-Finland cooperation. I wish all of you good health and peace. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Minister Chung. May I propose that we proceed next to our first panelist, Emma Winiecki from UN Women in Finland. Emma is a communication manager from UN Women Finland. Emma's experience expands across several countries, including Finland, United States, India, Brazil, Kenya, and Tanzania. Over the past few years, Emma has focused her work and research on the role of technologies and digital tools for promoting women's and girls' rights. Emma has promised both to open global perspectives for us and to tell about the Finnish experiences in the field of women and technology.
Everybody, can you hear me okay? Yes? Okay, perfect. First of all, my name is Emma Winiecki. I'm the Communications Manager for UN Women in Finland. UN Women is the United Nations entity for gender equality and women's empowerment, and UN Women in Finland is the Finnish National Committee of UN Women. And I wanted to first of all thank the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family in Korea and the Finnish Embassy in Seoul for inviting me to be a part of this very important and timely event today. I'm going to open up my PowerPoint presentation and share with you. Let's make sure it's working. So we know that gender equality is a prerequisite for sustainable development. We can't reach the sustainable development goal or sustainable economic growth if gender equality is not realized. However, at this point, gender equality has not been achieved anywhere in the world. And girls and women still face multiple challenges every single day just for the fact of being female. And these challenges vary and they range from things like child marriage or female genital mutilation, girls not being able to go to school, women not having equal access to positions of power and politics and decision making. The range is wide. And we also know that if we don't include 50% of our population at every level of our society in full capacity, we won't be able to reach the ambitious goals that we have set for the international society. We're only 9 years away from 2030, which is the benchmark that has been set for reaching the Sustainable Development Goals. And at this rate, we are unfortunately not going to get there. We also know that we won't be able to realize gender equality and reach these goals without the use of technology and innovation. But at the same time, we can't take advantage of the full potential of technology and innovation if half of our population is not included as equal users and equal creators of technology and digital solutions. There is still a huge digital gender gap globally. This also varies between regions and from country to country, but around 300 million fewer women than men currently have access to the internet. When women have access, they have less access to good devices like smartphones, less access to data, and when they have access, they use a smaller range of services than men do. Unfortunately, in many places in the world, when women do have a phone or they do have data access, that how they use those devices and how they use their data and their time online can still be controlled by other people, often the men in their families. Some of these challenges and barriers are slightly cultural and related to different parts of the world, but what they are all rooted in is discriminatory and harmful gender norms and stereotypes that prevent women and girls from accessing the tech sector, utilizing technology, and creating technology on an equal basis with men. A segregated labor market is a huge barrier to women's participation, and this is a big issue in Finland. Finland has one of the most segregated labor markets in the European Union. In our health and social sectors, around 86% of our workers are female, and in the technology industry, around 80% are male. And while Finnish girls score was on the highest scores in the EU in math and science. They, according to the PISA study, have the lowest level of interest of girls in all of the OECD countries to pursue studies in technology. So this lack of role models for the girls in tech sector is a huge barrier in Finland, around the world, whether we're talking global south or Western countries. The fact that we still don't see that many women in the tech sector in visible roles is a barrier that a lot of girls and women face when they're considering whether or not to enter that sector. From artificial intelligence professionals around the world, currently about 26% are female. And in general, in tech sector in general, the rate is about 80% male in most countries around the world. So it is a highly segregated sector. So how can we break down these barriers? I've brought in a few examples, concrete examples of Finland, of initiatives that are happening in Finland currently to encourage more women and girls to enter the tech sector. There's an initiative called Sinä osaat, which in English would be You Can initiative, which familiarizes girls with technology and grows their confidence in their skills and abilities. And this is spearheaded by Oulu University of Applied Sciences and a company called COHORT. Min Koda, or Women Code, is an initiative that offers free coding workshops for women and girls. Over 6,000 women and girls have participated in these workshops. And you don't need a background in technology, you don't need a background in the IT sector to enter these classes. The idea is to lower the bar and lower the threshold for women and girls to try out coding and get over kind of mental hump of maybe thinking that coding is more for boys and men than women and girls. Women Code is run by Finnish Software and E-Business Association and its member companies. And Women in Tech is a network that aims to encourage more women in technology and to promote the value of diversity, inclusion, and equity in technology. And this network is maintained and housed at Technology Industries of Finland, which is a lobbying organization for the tech industry. So these kinds of initiatives send the message to women and girls that the tech sector is there it is for the men, and also tries to kind of make it a more friendly sector to enter for women and girls. Because for a lot of them, it might be a daunting idea if we know how segregated it still is. So these initiatives bring out role models, they organize trainings, they organize webinars, they organize coffee hours, these days mostly virtually, obviously, but these are great ways to really break down some of those barriers and stereotypes around women and girls and the tech sector. I also wanted to bring in a few global examples that are kind of more related to, for example, what we do at UN Women. So, for example, in Kenya, with UN Women Support, Kenyan young girls in Kakuma refugee camp are learning coding, gamification, and computer skills. And these girls have also never had this background before, but they are, through these classes, able to see the kinds of things that they can create with coding, with creating their own games. They're making their own games that teach them about, for example, sexual and reproductive health, or their rights, or other relevant issues, and they're really seeing the potential of what technology can potentially offer them. What it is also doing is breaking the stereotypes and stigma, perhaps with the community and the idea that their parents might have had about tech being more for boys. So this work is really important for globally spreading the message that technology as a sector doesn't have a gender and it belongs to girls and women just as much as boys and men. Young Women has an initiative called Buy for Women, which is a digital platform and marketplace for women farmers that offers them access to information about land rights, about crops, about farming, about current market prices. So it is simultaneously an economic tool for them to improve their farming, to improve their economic outcomes. But through using the platform and getting trained for the platform, they're also obtaining basic digital skills. There are several initiatives around the world that are using crowdsourced digital maps where women can mark hotspots for violence, for example, and avoid those kinds of places where the risk of being attacked or abused is higher. This has been used in Egypt through a project called Harass Map. And one of the things that UN Women's Innovation Unit has identified as a priority for this area of work is also developing a market for innovations that advance gender equality. So we also need to demand, we can use technology, we can create gender equality and help us accelerate our pace of getting to that gender equality goal that we've set for ourselves as a global society. And we can help create a demand and a market for those kind of technological solutions that help us get there. I'm going to tell you a little bit about a new initiative from UN Women for Generation Equality, where Finland is also very heavily involved. And the purpose of Generation Equality Initiative is to accelerate the progress towards the gender equality goals and aims that we have. It's a UN Women-led multi-year initiative that aims to tackle the unfinished business of empowering women through a groundbreaking multi-generational campaign. And the whole idea of generation equality is to bring together activists and professionals and people who have been working on gender equality for decades and combine them with the young activists and grassroots movements happening today and really bring to the table the best of both worlds and identify those new and innovative ways that we really desperately need to make sure that gender equality is not only that gets to the goals that we've set, but that we're not moving back. Because with the COVID crisis, we've also seen some movement backwards, unfortunately, with gender equality situation around the world. It brings together generational equality, it brings together UN agencies, government, civil society, grassroots movements, activists, academia, and the private sector to really focus on how we can speed up our progress towards gender equality. We know that we can't achieve the SDGs and our global goals for gender equality without harnessing the full potential of technology. And therefore, one of the so-called action coalitions under Generation Equality focuses particularly on the role of technology and innovation. Each action coalition has certain entities and governments named as the leads for those action coalitions, and Finland is one of the leads for the action coalition on innovation and technology. And Finland has, I think, school priorities that Finland wants to promote, which is increasing the number of participation and leadership roles of women and girls in the field in STEM fields, science, technology, engineering, and math, narrowing the gender gap when it comes to digital skills and digitalization. And this is also a challenge in Finland, even though boys and girls have equal access to learning these skills. Girls, whether or not they have less skills, I'm not sure, but they have less confidence in their skills. So when you do surveys with boys and girls and ask them about their level of confidence in their tech skills and digital skills, girls' level of confidence is much lower than boys. So it's also important to grow their belief in their own skills and that they can do these things and they know how to do these things. The third priority is developing gender-sensitive and participatory technologies and innovations that promote non-discrimination and expanding and developing women's rights relating to digitalization and innovations, as well as supporting equality for women who are involved in the drafting of these rights and developing innovations. And then the last point, which is of utmost importance, especially in the times that we are now, reducing violence against women and girls and creating safe digital spaces for all of us. Right now, the rise of gender-based violence and hate speech online in digital spaces and social media is a huge barrier for women and girls to feel safe when they're using their computers and their devices and to feel that they can participate equally in discussions and debates online. So until we can curb this violence and this hate speech, women and girls won't be able to participate equally. And especially now we're in a pandemic where most of our lives have to move to digital spaces, this situation has also obviously worsened and heightened, and the importance is even greater than before because women and girls are being left outside of discussions, of debates, of decision making because they can't feel safe in digital spaces. So focusing on this violence piece is really, really important. Technology is still predominantly created by men, and often when we think of the user, we think of a man. And that means that our technology is biased. Not only does it exclude one half of the population in the development process, but it also sometimes inadvertently ends up reinforcing and replicating gender stereotypes and biases that hinder realization of gender equality in all levels of society. For example, AI programs, artificial intelligence programs that recognize voice and faces, are less efficient in recognizing the faces and voices of women and also minorities than of white men. Automatic translation tools like Google Translate and others assume that if you write a word like an astronaut or leader, that you're talking about a man, and they will combine those words with the English male pronoun he, whereas cleaner or caretaker is translated to mean she. This isn't only because those tools might be biased and there might be bias in their coding, but because our world is biased and those translation tools are analyzing information online from decades and decades of biases, and they're replicating those. So our technology right now, unfortunately, often ends up reinforcing the stereotypes and discriminatory ideas that we have about what women's and men's roles are in society, not only in technology, but in general. When at UN Women Finland, we recently did a campaign around Women's Day called, the title of Women's Place Is, and our slogan was a women's place is everywhere. But if you wrote the sentence, a woman's place is, in Finnish to Google, the auto fill offered two options, in the kitchen or at home. So when these kind of messages are constantly sent to us, it is no wonder that we have these very deeply rooted ideas of women's and men's roles and places in society. And we can turn it around and we can use technology as a means to break those stereotypes. And that is exactly what we have to do. The more inclusive and diverse our tech field is, the more inclusive and diverse the solutions will also be. Because the more of different people from different backgrounds we have creating technology and creating tech solutions, different people's perspectives and different people's needs and rights and priorities will be included. Women's inclusion as creators of technology is not just a question of a moral imperative. It's necessary for the global society to be able to fully leverage the possibilities and potentials of technology as one of the key drivers of sustainable development, inclusive growth, and realization of human rights. And the challenges that we face as a global society are big and daunting, but the possibilities that we have with innovative approaches and solutions through technology could be limitless. But we can't tap into that limitless potential if we're not using the potential of half of our population. If women and girls are excluded, and we're excluding 50% of the skills and the know-how and ideas and dreams and rights and needs of our population, we can't take full advantage of the potential that technology offers to us. And women and girls need technology to thrive and to participate and to realize their rights and voice their opinions. But I think that the technology industry needs women and girls even more. Because without their input, we're only taking advantage of maximum of half of what technology really has to offer. And that is definitely an injustice to women and girls, but it's also a terrible waste of potential. And I think it's a waste that we can't allow to happen. Thank you.
Oh, thank you very much, Emma. You brought up very interesting issues on our discussion. Importance of the role models, generation equality. I hope Finland and Korea, we can also join forces there. Violence against women, this is a thing that comes up to our mind all the time. We have to do more there. And then your point of technology tending to strengthen the stereotypes. That's what makes our discussion here even more pertinent. But now our next panelist is Dr. Moon Jeong Choi from Korea Advanced Institute of Science and Technology that I visited a couple of weeks ago, and I think this is the most innovative university in whole Asia. I'm totally thrilled. I'm totally thrilled to have a professor from that university that I think we, Finland, should really align very close with. Dr. Moon Choi is an associate professor in the Graduate School of Science and Technology Policy at the KAIST University, as we call it. She has founded and currently runs a research group called Aging and Technology Policy Lab. She has recently completed a research project on gender issues in the artificial intelligence workforce. Today, Dr. Choi will tell us about gendered society and gendered technology with the Korean experience. Dr. Choi, I'm pleased to give the floor to you.
Thank you, Ambassador Metso, and I'm so honored to be a part of this wonderful webinar, and I really appreciate all the effort to make this happen, the Embassy of Finland in Seoul, as well as the staff at the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family. And as the Ambassador mentioned, that I'm from KAIST, and I'm a faculty member, and today my talk is about more the IT, the information technology and gender issues. So the title is Gendered Society and Gendered Technology. And I would like to briefly introduce what I'm doing, or our research group is doing at KAIST. So I'm the gerontologist, and we focus on social issues and social justice about technology. So I'm not sure how many of you have heard about the word of gerontology. So it's about the aging process, but once we are born, we go through all the life course. So from the gerontologist perspective, the gender equality is not just something happen, right away after 20s. It's more the accumulated advantage and disadvantage from the birth to death. So we tried to analyze how society, social structure, history, and the culture affect the inequality issues related to technology. And I'm teaching the course about technology and social justice, also trying to measure the happiness, inequality, equality, and social assistance, etc. And when we think about the inequality, I feel this is very important information. I guess many of you have watched the YouTube video about if the world were 100 people. This is more about the developing and developed countries. These days it's less developed countries. But there are people around the world, about 50 women and 50 men, and older generation, etc. But when we translate the real world into the digital world, the reality is quite different. So there are people who don't have any access to the internet. So it means that they are invisible on the web. And when you think about the ages, the groups, there are people under 14 and people over 65. They have less access to the internet. So on the website and the internet world, they are less visible. And when you think about the gender issue, it's obvious that there are 50 are women and 50 are men. But when you think about this issue in the digital world, women are less visible. So this is the issue about inequality. So technology is not just something like objective or scientific, something out there. It's a reflection of the real society. So I mean that technology is social, the product. It's a reflection of what we think, what we value, and what we believe that's translated into the digital world. And when you think about the Korea and Korean experience, as you know that Korea has experienced the rapid economic development. This is the graph about the GDP per capita since the Korean War until the 2017. And I would like to emphasize the period that between the 1998 to 2006, after the IMF, the economic crisis, there's a rapid growth of the economy. The important driving force behind this economic growth is the information technology. Korea has become one of the leading countries around the world to lead the information communication technology. And I think it's very important to think about how this digitalization and transformation affected the people's lives. So I went to college, I entered college in 1998. So it's called Tuparapon in South Korea. And I'm the first generation who went through the online education and online experience. And one of the most important to the timeline in the digitalization is the 2002. 2002 is not just well known about the World Cup, Korean World Cup, but it's also known for the transformation between the analog world and the digital world. So this is a very well-known journal article published from Science. So they tried to get all the information around the world and measure how the analog information transformed the digitalization. And I guess many of you probably know this novel. It's very well known, the 82년생 김지영. And this novel is a lady. It's about a woman who was born in 1982. And Kim Ji-young is one of the most common names in South Korea who are born in that year. And that's the generation who is turning into 40s. And they are also went through the digitalization 2002 because that's the year that they went to college. So when we think about the digitalization and analog and digital world and gender equality, it's very important to think about how social structure has been changed and the benefits and resources, how they are equally distributed across the groups by gender, age, disability, etc. So the UNDP has developed the index. It's called the Gender Inequality Index. So we love to rank, right? We rank all the countries who are the top one and who are the bottom. And based on this Gender Inequality Index, Korea is pretty good. It's top 10%. It's 11 because Korea GDP rank is about 12 something. So it's pretty doing well. But when you think about the economist, the gross selling index, the results are quite bad. It's the bottom. Why there's a difference between these two different indexes? Because it depends on how it's measured. About the UNDP, the Gender Inequality Index, it's very basic things. It's about health issues, the mortality, the maternal mortality, or the female-male population with early secondary education. That's the middle school. So when you think about basic things, Korea seems to be quite doing well. But when you think about the progress and about the leadership, it's not. That's the reality. I feel these days there's a ladder, but it's not just one step. There's a multi-layered grass selling. When we see the leader, one woman broke one selling, we feel like, oh, we don't need to worry about the gender inequality issue any longer. But it's not, because that's how we experience everyday life. And I feel one of the most important technologies these days is artificial intelligence, but this is very new thing. About 5 years ago, AI is not that popular. The very turning point and turning moment in South Korea is as you know, the Google DeepMind challenge match. That is the Seoul, and some of my colleagues went to the Four Seasons Hotel and amazed about the match. And since then, AI is one of the most important the economic strategy or technology development in South Korea. And AI started to affect everyday our lives, from the automobile driving, from the job application, and even the child abuse the prevention system, from the private to the government sectors. That means that information technology is just out there and we just find and use it. It started to make a decision about us. When you apply job, when you go somewhere, when we use the e-government services, etc. So it's very important to think about the gender innovation and gender equality when we develop a system based on the AI, because that's sort of the automate the sort of the decision systems. And recently, I would like to emphasize one of the most important days these days is December 23rd. That's not my birthday. That's the last year. It's a very important moment in Korean society because on that day, the government announced the artificial intelligence ethical guidelines. And on the same day, there's the chatbot service called Iruda. And it's just same day. And we saw many the social issues from this chatbot, because this chatbot started creating the sexist and the ageist and ableist the remarks. And it has become a really important social issue, and they stopped the service after 21 days. And to me, this is like the spear and shield. It's like, the police and chasing the robbery, but there's always the good kind of will, and then people try to abuse it. And it's very important moment that we build a more gender equal kind of the system. And I felt this year is a very important moment in the development of artificial intelligence, also build a better society, because it's very important to think about the gender norms, and the young generation are exposed to AI so much. And it's very important to unlearn, because gender is something that people learn. It's not people are born with a certain kind of gender norms. So I feel challenge means opportunity, and I think it's a wonderful year to think about the gender innovation in terms of the artificial intelligence policy and also technology policy and education. I saw the wonderful cartoon, the Moonin, people coming to the embassy, and I would like to thank you to everyone and hitos and 감사합니다. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Joy. You brought up so many interesting issues here on our discussion. Invisible people, you were talking about people without internet. I've always said that the biggest violation against somebody's human rights is that if you are invisible, because that means that nobody sees you, nobody cares about who you are, what your rights are, where you are placed in the world. So the focus on this invisibility is really key. That opens up also the discussion that we are having here. You interestingly point out also the changes in the social structures, and that how it impacts in everything, how we see the gender also. Technology, you mentioned, is also a social project. That's the key also to get more concrete in what we are talking about it. I would be really interesting to, I didn't have time to follow, but where Finland stands in this class ceiling index, because that is really something different, as you pointed out, that we may very conservatively look at what equality is, and so we need to have different sort of like ways to determine that. And of course artificial intelligence, and you pointing out that yes, that's a thing that we really have to think about the future also, that we handle that also carefully, that we are not making things worse in the terms of gender. But let's continue then to our third panelist, Johanna Pystynen, CEO from LAS company in Finland. In 2012, Johanna joined Finnish IT company Vincit as Human Resource Director and was tasked with creating an advanced human resource management model. Vincit, we in Finland know, is a 3-time winner of the Best Workplace in Finland, Best Workplace even in Europe in 2016, and rated among Fast Company's global Best Workplaces for Innovators 2020 list. Currently, Johanna works as the CEO of Vincit's subsidiary LAS company. Johanna here today will tell us about innovative company level experience and the model leadership as a service, how to treat your employees, as internal customers. Please, Johanna, the floor is yours.
So our story starts from 2012. Back then I joined the company as HR director, and as you can see, we had a lot of young men and engineers in our company. I was actually the first woman in the company, and we knew that we have to create somehow a leadership model that would actually arouse interest also in women and help women to join our company. So I joined the company and we started to create this model, and we decided to start thinking our employees as internal customers, because we were growing all the time as a company quite fast, and we started to have employees with different needs and with different backgrounds. And quite soon we noticed that one model doesn't fit anyone anymore. They had different kind of goals, and they appreciated different kinds of leadership, and it wasn't an effective model to support everyone the same way. So we decided that with this internal customer perspective, we probably could get better results and create more equal opportunities for everyone. So what we did then with this internal customer idea was that we started to think our leadership as a service person. So we were asking, what if HR would provide services to people? Could sales provide services to our employees? What about employees working inside the company? Could they provide support and services to each others? And would we actually create this platform, the kind of internal marketplace where people would choose their support based on their individual needs and make decisions about what services they would like to use? So we decided to try. And with our software engineers, we developed this platform. We call it Leadership as a Service platform, but it's kind of an internal marketplace where we show all the support we have available to our employees. And our employees can log in, they can go to see different categories. We have well-being services, we have competence development services, we have career support services, and so on. And they can see all the support available, and then they can make choices based on their situation. So they are the ones who are the active consumers. They don't wait anymore happily that their manager notices their challenges and offers them support. Instead, they have all the opportunities available and visible, and they make decisions. And we have about 150 services available nowadays. We don't do anything before we see that there is a need for that. So if people don't order those services, we don't put any money and energy on those areas. So this is kind of also a platform for making experiments, trying different services, understanding what is working and what is not, and also deleting those services that are not powerful. And here you can see some of the services we have available, and these are, for example, used amongst people who have families, who are living with families. We offer support if they have children with challenges. They also have their own sleeping schools available. We have different online courses. We have external service providers like Volunteer, which is the online service, and they provide support to our employees. We have different courses. We have a lot of services provided by our own employees, so they have some kind of customer or technical skills, and they make it visible in our internal marketplace and offer this support to their colleagues. So internally, we have at the moment 80 service providers. That means that every support function offers services to our employees, but also a lot of employees are there working as service providers. And of course, their job is something that they do, in addition to their normal working role. They are really keen to do that. They are willing to share their competencies and help their colleagues to succeed. And we also use this for these just engage people to the community. So, for example, social course is something that is one of our employees is providing to others just to help people to get to know each other and so on. But altogether, 150 services available, and employees are the ones who choose their own support. And this way we change the whole idea of how leadership is done. Not, pushing everything from the leadership level, guessing what people would need and believing that those decisions are right. Instead, we are all the time exploring what people need today. And if something happens, changes in environment, COVID of course is an extreme example about that. It might be that those old models that we had here don't work anymore. So then we try something else and start to understand what is working today after these changes to these people. So it's kind of helping us to do this continuous development also, and also getting rid of all the waste that comes when we have models that are not working anymore. So it's kind of an effective way to do leadership. We also use data to support people to choose right services. So we have, for example, competence development surveys here. They can answer to different questions about pedagogical capabilities, and then they will get suggestions about the services they could that would be useful for them based on their own results. So we have well-being questionnaire or survey there, we have competence development survey, we have employee engagement survey and different kinds of pulse surveys, and all the data helps individuals to understand the context, helps them to lead themselves and make better decisions, and also then the data always leads into an action, so they always get suggestions. The AI behind this tool is understanding all the time better and better what kind of support would help the individuals support that this tool offers to people. And we also reflect the data in HR. So every 4th month we will look at the results, because when people use these services, they also are asked to evaluate the usefulness and experience of the service. So this way we will get all the time data about what is working. We also can dive deeper and see, are there certain services that are working better for the women instead comparing to the men, or are there certain services that are working better with the millennials comparing to the people going to retire soon. So this way we actually understand what kind of services we should offer to different groups. And then also if we have 1 or 2 star services, then we know that those are waste for the company. Let's stop them, let's take the resources out and focus the resources to the things that are working. So this is kind of the model behind the last ideology. So this was shortly my presentation about this model. I think the timing is right, so now probably we have time also for the questions. So let's give the turn to the embassy. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Johanna. That gave us lots of ideas for thought for a further discussion. We are maybe later on towards the end of our discussion, we are going to hit the hot topic here in Korea, the chaebols, and how to break the gender issue in chaebols. That would interest me in great deal. But before that, the 4th and last speaker, Mrs. Hyung-Seung Lee, co-founder of Telepasse, a co-managing director of Girls in Tech. Mrs. Hyung-Seung Lee is a co-founder and COO of the Telepasse, a digital agency. Recognized for her contribution in development of software industry, she received actually an award by Ministry of Science and Technology, Information and Communication just recently in 2020. She's also a co-managing director of global non-profit organization Girls in Tech, Korea chapter, focusing on engagement, education, and empowerment of women in technology. Mrs. Lee will give her presentation with the title, Dream Big, Advocating Half the Board. Please, Mrs. Lee, I would like to hear from you now.
Thank you for the kind introduction. Dear esteemed guests, I'm here today to share with you some of the work that we do at Girls in Tech, with some insights that I have gained over my 7 years of running my business. So shall we get to it? Dream big, advocating half the board. What exactly comes to mind when you think of tech? Silicon Valley, coders, computer scientists, the big five? How about tech in terms of Korea? Samsung, LG, Kakao, Coupang? Perhaps the gaming industry? Do they look a certain way? How about gender? In Girls in Tech, we push to think bigger. We see that tech is every industry, that tech is every company, and that tech is everyone. Research suggests that only 5% of leadership positions in tech are held by women. PwC report said 78% of students could not name the biggest female working in tech. 20% of women over the age of 35 are still in junior positions in the tech sector. 25% of all the jobs in the tech industry are held by women. Numbers remain about the same, sometimes worse, as we see a stark dropout of women starting in their 30s and older in Korea. Now, advances in the tech industry helped establish a culture for startups and new businesses. And with the disruption these agile startups brought, a new environment for investment and funding took place. Amid the growing excitement for new opportunities, when we look at the numbers, we know that there is room for improvement for women. Every year, we see some improvement, and yet we know there is a long way ahead of us. In terms of absolute numbers, we see a growing trend from 33 female-led companies that secured funding in 2018 to 54 companies in 2020. And the percentage of the total investment amount from 2% to 8%. Yes, we need to celebrate the accomplishments and the small wins over the years, but we need not forget to evaluate objectively. The numbers still lie around less than 10% of the total. We should work together to encourage women's continued economic participation. Korean technology has become prevalent and recognized around the world, and yet Korea's gender pay gap is the highest among OECD countries. In Girls in Tech, we say it's time to close that gap. Let's dream big. Just like Africa's first woman president, Ellen Johnson Sirleaf, said, if your dreams don't scare you, they're not big enough. On behalf of Girls in Tech Global, I introduce to you our campaign called Half the Board, 50-50 by 2025. We call upon organizations and individuals to commit to gender parity in their boardrooms. For that dream to become a reality, we ask both genders at the corporate top to recognize the importance of gender parity and gender diversity, not just to support women, but as McKinsey and Company report finds, gender diversity is correlated with both profitability and value creation. We also encourage all of us to commit to gender parity. To achieve that, at Girls in Tech, our mission is to provide experiences and educational opportunities for all us to be, one, inspired to pursue our dreams. 2, to be empowered to be our best selves. 3, to be connected to a supportive community. 4, to be prepared to pursue modern careers. 5, to be confident throughout the journey. We are deeply committed to building the diverse, inclusive, and equitable workforce that the world needs. We recognize that there is a strong, smart, and outspoken self within all of us. We want to excel in our work and be confident in our fields. Yet, as women enter positions of power, we see that women face multitudes of challenges. Research shows that likability and success are negatively correlated for women. Successful women in the past were thought of as women in pants, aggressive and strong, and no hint of nurturing feminine side. I don't want that for my life, I thought. Then I examined my leadership style and thought, am I too comforting? Why can't I be more effective? While I was searching for alternative options I could try, I came across the great Machiavelli. It is much safer to be feared than loved. And all this time, I tried to put to practice Brené Brown's power of vulnerability. Being vulnerable is powerful, and at the same time, it opens doors to attacks at every opportunity for others' advantage. I figured understanding both sides of the coin will always work in my advantage, and so I delved a little deeper into Machiavellian ideals and read books on strategies of war, gaining an understanding of the perspective of military analogies in business management. So I tried to equip myself with this mindset, only to realize it was draining out my energy. Then I came across a book called Compelling People by John Messenger. As our societies become more civilized, we are in search of different leadership styles. And he claims the importance of finding the right balance between strength and warmth that fit you. After having contemplated on this issue over weeks, I realized this just means we need to think outside the box. We need to redefine the roles of gender, that of mom and dad, and that of a leader. That's why today's event, Women in Tech, towards the success story of gender equality is important. And that's why organizations like Girls in Tech are sought after around the world. As we engage in more discussions across the globe to raise awareness, to increase access to tech careers, to increase the visibility of female role models and mentors, we are hopeful for the years to come. Girls in Tech is currently serving over 60,000 members in 50 chapters across 37 countries, and we are growing. Girls in Tech Korea was established in 2014 and is growing strong. Over the years, we have produced hackathons, business pitch competitions, Python boot camps, and much more. We use both physical and digital platforms to create safe spaces where communities can thrive and voices can be heard. We offer global as well as local programs for individuals to attend and to network. We want to raise more interest in tech. We want those who started their careers in tech to thrive and to step up to management and leadership positions. We want those in leadership positions who want to give back to the community to have the opportunity to do so. We want to raise the level of financial literacy and encourage growth mindset required to be able to start a business, secure funding, and thrive economically. With that, I would like to close today's remark with Girls in Tech slogan, "Tech needs you, just as you are." Thank you.
Thank you very much. What a nice phrase you have at the end, as you are. That's it. That's with everything. No need to change yourself. You should be accepted and taken, included as you are. I think we have had here today a very versatile combination of different points of views, very interesting presentations by our panelists. And one can really hear from this conversation that we need both global but then also local and state level action in order to get something into place. And what really strikes me also through all of this discussion is that the individual companies really need to do a lot. So it's easy always to start from somewhere else, but if you don't start with your own company, then maybe whatever you want to achieve will not be done. And then one can say also that there are individual companies here listening to your stories, that some companies are actually doing also pretty okay. But so they have to be these role models that were sought after in the beginning of our discussion. And all in all, when one listens to you, then one gets a strong feeling that there's no success story without women if women are not more closely involved in technology, science and engineering. And I see that the progress has to be really emphasized now for the future, as we are thinking also here in Korea. You are living already almost in the future. So the time is right now. I have compiled here a couple of questions. I wonder whether we have received any others from the group, but I can start with the ones that I have here available. Personally, I think we are now in Korea, so what I would really like to hear from the Korean guest here, because I think that technically it's easier to do it here. Chaebols, to our Finnish guests. So chaebols are the giants in the Korean business world. I just recently, this week, visited one of the chaebols, namely LG Chem. And I noticed that they had this local that they had three different sort of like main goals or strategies. One was innovative sustainability, and underneath that it was stressed making a positive contribution to the society. And I was a little bit surprised to find there in the next box human rights, diversity and inclusion. Of course, I was very happy to see. I don't know how many Finnish companies either have human rights, inclusion and diversity on the top of their policies, what they want to achieve. But at the same time, there's lots of talk about here about the giants, the chaebols, and especially because they are the giants in the technology. So our distinguished Korean speakers here, can you enlighten us a little bit how you see the chaebols in this context of women in tech? What kind of role, what can we expect? How do you see them moving here in this field?
I can start. I think they are going into that movement, joining us in the movement of really supporting women. Especially we can see that in I think both companies, private companies, public companies, and investment firms as well. I think there are that movement where they recognize the importance of having that gender diversity. So, but I think they could step a little further and become an example for the rest of the small and medium businesses. But I think there is an underlying understanding that the importance of gender parity exists, and it's a movement that is global.
And I reviewed the research about this gender equality issue in industry in South Korea, and I felt compared to academia, the industry world is more challenging because in academia, the Ministry of the Gender Equality and Family, also the Ministry of Education tries so hard to push university have more gender-friendly environment because they got funded by the government. But about the private company, it's so hard to regulate because they are sort of the outside of public center. They are so private. And based on the report, only as the Ms. Lee mentioned that the only 5% of the CEOs in not just the entire industry world, the women. But based on the statistics, if there were the CEO and the representative of the company would be women, there are more women in the staff. So I think it's very important to encourage the women to do startup like with her. That is a very good strategy. It's not just to find jobs and apply. It's more you can start your own business and hire other people. And if government to put lots of effort on that, especially tech kind of business, I think there should be a big change in 10 or 20 years in the future.
Yes, very good. I also see that the current companies some of the companies are really taking the lead and making the change. However, when I think I'm this age, and I think that I recently said in an interview here that I'm really glad to be born in a country where we have also had wise politicians who have made the changes happen. I would say made the changes happen. You cannot ask in some questions, is it good or is it bad? You just have to make it. And that's why this question about the glass ceiling, so that glass has been broken in Finland several times, and I'm so proud of that. Here in Korea, then, we talk first about the companies, but then if we talk about the policies, the current political scenes, policies, so what do you feel should be the priorities, whoever holds the political power here, to advance the women's position in the technology related field? And so from policy point of view, where do you see from the policy point of view the biggest challenges? And then, because you were in that one index also quite high up, so maybe you can tell also something where you have succeeded, or you feel that you have succeeded.
I have thought about that issue a long time, and I think it's very important to have some consensus about why diversity is important in every area. Because the government usually put goals like 25% should be women or 10% or etc. But I feel if people don't understand why it's important and why diversity is important and it's just goal, Maybe they can push and maybe reach goal like 10%, 20%, but without truly understanding, it's harder to go forward. So I think in public sector and in other area too, it's very important to invest to develop a good education about gender equality and why it's important. And also, especially younger generation, I keep saying the unlearning gender, because when you think about gender, it's a social structure, unconsciously and consciously. So for younger generation, it's very important to unlearn from the kindergarten to elementary school. So I think culture and social norms and those things should be changed first too. And then the other sectors will follow, if people have share the common values, I believe.
When you mentioned about education, I think I agree largely in part because yes, policies are important in order to give that space for an opportunity for women to take on a role that we haven't had the chance for a historic amount of time. But at the same time, what I see is that women take a step back and they don't trust or they don't have the confidence to step forward. And as companies or any organization, we strive for excellence. And you can't just have a mediocre female take on that lead because she's a female. I think that strive for excellence is always required in any organization. And for women to really understand that they have the potential and that they are capable and competent to go through these challenges in a different way that the world has never seen before. And I think that's the scary part that women really face, and they're scared to say lean in, as Sheryl Sandberg says.
Indeed, wise words from both of you. However, now it's time to thank everybody. Time to close our webinar for today. We all have, I'm sure, enjoyed very much this discussion. I want to thank all the panelists, the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, and everybody who has been following this webinar here today. I assure that our work in order to promote participation and leadership of women and girls in technology and science and engineering continues. As I told you already on Saturday, we are eagerly getting girls in coding in Hanyang University here in Seoul. This is a cooperation that the Embassy wants to continue in all possible fields. Women in tech, that's one of the key themes for this embassy here in Seoul. Wishing the participants in Helsinki very good afternoon. We are about to finish the day here. Enjoy the spring. I guess you have a spring there also. We are a little bit sweating in this studio here, but longing a little bit cooler weather, but have enjoyed you very much also from the Finnish side. So like to talk to you again. And so everybody, have a good day the rest of the day, wherever you are.